that we need to be aware of it. That's most important. And then we have to build tools to overcome the emotional traps that we all fall into. So that's the goal of these sessions for another 4 to 5 weeks. I would try to touch some of the emotional biases we have in our brain that is acting against us. That's the thing we would be covering. Okay, we'll just give 1 minute and then we'll get started. So how are you doing all?
Good.
Good. Okay. So I'm using the same slide deck we used to use. I would just continue updating the slides during the week, and then we talk about the slides for a given week during the session we would be discussing. So yeah, it's the same slides I would be updating. Okay. You can also see my screen, right? Okay, so this is what we invested sometime during June. I just want to show how our investments has grown up over the months, right? So here on as on that we invested around 30,000 Danish krone, and some investments grown at 20%, some grown by 10%, some we lost minus 1.60%, as you can see. This is the three index funds we chosen that time, and India index fund did well comparing to US index fund. As you can see here in India, it grown up by 20.52%, whereas US it's only 10.41%. And that's a beauty of indexing, right? You haven't did anything, you just parked your money, and then money is working for you in the background. Since May we were been investing, so since May until now we are in November, this is how the money has grown. So this is called money working for you. If you have saved money and if you invest it in proper instruments, money would grow while you are doing your own stuff, right? Studying or pursuing your goals, personal goals. So this is just to showcase how money can grow if you invest it in index funds without a lot of effort. Okay, so as I was talking some time ago, this from this session, coming 4 to 5 session, I want to cover the emotional part of the investing or financial knowledge. This is very important, and I would say apart from the technical or the all other knowledges, the emotional is plays the very important role. I would say 90% emotions, 10% is the investing knowledge. Many people fail in this emotional part of the game, and this is defines the success versus failure in the investing world. So this is the reason I want to you to be aware of the emotions part of the investing, and this emotional part is not just applicable for investing, it also applicable for your personal life. Hopefully some of these topics we are covering coming sessions would also helpful you in your daily life. Now let me ask a generic question. I use emotions and psychology vice versa, but uh, do you have a understanding of psychology when I say psychology, or should we um, briefly touch psychology, human psychology? I use this word quite often from now until next 5 6 sessions. I also want you to remember this word, human psychology. Do you know this term, or should I briefly explain? psychology.
Yeah.
I think in simple term, rather than going to the technical definition or book definition, in psychology is the emotions part of our brain. Okay, so as you know, we are evolved as a humans for many million years, right? So our brain also been getting evolved over many years. So brain has some default functions inbuilt into our uh, uh, buildup of the brain. So this emotions is been carry forwarded over the generations, right? So that is something we still have. And for example, fear is one of the fear is one of the emotion which we have carry forwarded for many years from the Stone Age, when we were living in the Stone Age, and all the way back. So in simple term, fear is something when you are walking in a forest. Imagine way back, thousands of years ago, when you were walking in a forest, when you see shaking a bush, if somebody is running, you would also run. You don't ask a question. That's a fear. And we also have a group behavior. So if we are part of a tribe, whatever tribe does, we have to follow, otherwise we would be dead. Tiger may attack, or bear may attack, any animal can attack when we were living in the forest and doing. So this inbuilt emotions been carry forwarded over the generations, and we still have that in our brain. So if you see our brain, the emotions part of it is still there. We have some biases, some inbuilt functions that are still not relevant for this world, but we still have them. We can't get away from them. Only thing we can do is we need to be aware of them, and we need to build some mechanisms to overcome those biases. So psychology part of emotions that we are covering here is pure finance angle, not the typical psychology you hear in the news, right? Depression, stress, we would not be touching them. In within psychology there are many domains. So we are covering the behavioral economics and emotions part of the psychology with respect to the money finance world. There are many other domains in psychology, people who are specialized in therapies and other things, but we are covering only the emotions part of it. So here, this picture shows you the different biases we have in our brain. So this I can take a more clear version. So this is the same. I kept it in the slides, but you can also find. So here is the notes for the lecture, for the slide. You can find the link here, and you can briefly look at it. So these are all the different biases we have in our brain. I can briefly touch one of the bias here. Social comparison bias. I think we all fall into this trap, social comparison bias. So when we were living back in Stone Age, or as part of human evolution, we were living in tribes, right? We were living in groups, and we were always part of the group, and the group was protecting together against, all the wild animals and the environmental catastrophes that we were been facing back then. So when we were living in group, we were also comparing one other, right? How, who is strongest, who is tallest, who is fastest, who can do. So this social comparison bias is been there for generations, and it's part of our brain. You can't avoid it. You would easily fall into this, and because this is part of our brain, it get activated automatically. You can't avoid it. These are the default things that happens in our brain without even thinking through them. Brain does this automatically. So one of the thing is social comparison bias. I just want to give one example before we talk about all other biases, just to get an idea of what is this bias. And so social comparison bias is, I think you all fall into it. I myself also fall into this, but now I got better over the years, because I know we have this bias. My brain is tricking me, so I have to uh, keep away from it. So social comparison is basically you are comparing yourself with your peers, right? Hey, why I'm not as smart as him, why I am not as rich as him, why my parents are not as rich, why they are driving some expensive car, my dad is still driving. So all kind of comparisons we do everyday life, right? Why I'm so short, why I'm not so tall, why I'm so social comparison uh, um, is something we have to watch out, and we should not fall into the trap of comparing forever, and then we will never be happy. Okay, so now compare that with the finance world. See, somebody else is always getting rich, or somebody else is making more money than you should not compare with others. Everybody has their own pace, and you never know what would happen to the other guy, right? So social comparison is one bias you should watch out. Likewise, we have all these different biases. I would not be covering all of them. I would cover few most important biases that you should be aware. And when you see the human behavior around you, it could be your friends, your parents, your grandparents, or your relatives, you would try to find the patterns in this. You may hear this quite often from adults conversation, right? Hey, that guy bought that, or this guy bought this big house, or look at the jewelry they were wearing, look at the sari, whatever. Those you could easily say that it's a social comparison, that human brain does this automatically. And this is one of the, I would not say flaw. We are being built like this, as part of a Darwinian evolution of human brain, right? So what we should do is we should aware of these flaws or biases, and then uh, watch out so that you don't fall into these traps, right? Are those biases useful these days, with this I think this is the same bias Facebook, Twitter, Instagram uses against us, right? Because if you see Instagram, Facebook, all these social apps, they want to compare yourself with others, because when somebody sharing something, you are automatically comparing. Look at that guy, he's so happy, why I'm not doing that, why I'm not getting that. So that's your brain doing this social comparison, because it's a thing in our brain, it's a bias in our brain, which is always comparing with and that's also motivating us to do the same posts in Instagram, Facebook next time, that I want to show my peers that I am doing quite better than them, or I'm more happy, or whatever, thing they want to show to their peers, friends, whoever it is. So that's social comparison that motivating us to do this. So any questions so far, or is it totally out of your uh, thinking? Does this make sense, what I'm talking?
Yeah, it makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense.
You can't avoid it completely. I can tell from my experience, I myself fall into these traps, but now I'm getting better, because now I know these are there in my brain, and I just build some process to avoid such traps. So you should aware of them, and then you should always um, build some mechanisms to not fall into those traps. Same in the investing world, we have some biases. Okay, so this is what I would be covering next 4 to 5 weeks, and this is most important i- in life. I myself learned this almost 8 years ago. Since then, I've been using this in my daily life, and it took me so much time because nobody taught me this early in my life. But I would say you should learn this early in life so you would overcome many issues or many things in life, because most of the issues or many of the problems we face that can be overcome once we understand our brain a bit more. I mean, emotions part and the flaws we have in our brain, because many things is not external, it's all internal, it's all in our brain. So this is something most important. Psychological part of this is most important in the financial world as well as your personal life. Okay, so that's the bias. Any questions before we jump into the next topic? The topic I want to cover this week is the gratification, delayed gratification versus instant gratification. So there is a quite a lot of research done on this part. Any questions before we go into this topic?
No.
Okay. My suggestion: these topics you would learn only when you observe things around you. So have an open mind and observe things what is happening around you from the emotional point of view. Then only you would observe this biases which I'm talking. If you don't observe them, you would never understand them. This is bit tricky because it's not a mathematical formula. You can say a plus b equal to c, or it's not a science. It's a emotions. Does not have any solid. It can go in many directions. You should just watch out and observe this closely. Okay, so uh, the instant gratification versus delayed gratification, this there is been a research done on kids to understand how how is how some kids are very successful in their life and versus why some kids are not so successful. And what they have found out was people who has delayed their gratification towards the things, they were being more successful in their life versus people who are gratifying doing the instant gratification. So this is the research from Stanford from 1960s, and they were been observing 5 generation of kids since then to see how this results are true. They were tracking kids after the test and seeing them getting successful, or they're tracking their life history to observe whether they were being successful or failure. So let's look at this experiment and see what we understand. Okay, I don't know if you can you hear the sound?
We don't see the
You
screen.
can't see the screen. Yeah.
Yes, I didn't share. Now
Yeah, we can hear it.
Okay, sit in that chair. All right, here's the deal. Marshmallow, for you. You can either wait and I'll give you another one if you wait, or you can eat it now. When I come back, I'll give you another one, so then you'll have two. But stay in here and stay in the chair till I come back, okay? All right. I'm gonna go do something and then I'll come back.
It smells yummy. It smells really good.
All right, so it's up to you. You can have it now or you can wait. Okay? I'll be back. Stay in the chair, okay? Okay.
So the kids were basically given marshmallow and asked them, you know, if you get one now, um, you can eat now if you want, or I'll come in some 5-10 minutes and then I'll give you the other one if you don't eat this one. So they build this incentive saying that if you want to consume it now, you get one, but if you wait for some time, you get two. So and then they look at the emotions that kids are going through. You have something that you like so much, and you can't consume it because it's they get to if they wait for 10 minutes, but some kids they can't control. So let's see. He's trying really hard to not to eat. He can't control himself, so he's eating a little.
All right, so I'm gonna leave and then I'll come back, okay? So you can either eat it right now or you can wait. Either way, okay?
Some
Okay.
people some kids they just eat immediately. They don't care about the future benefit, right?
How'd you do? Did you do good? You did?
Yeah.
You wanted to eat it, didn't you? Yeah. So did I tell you to give you another one? Okay, now you can have both. You need them.
So this is an experiment. So kids who were not waiting until the time they were instant gratifiers. So basically, they want to consume things now. They don't want to wait for the future benefits or future results. And some kids they just want to wait until the future benefit. And what they have done is they have tracked these kids until their youth and marriage life and how they settled, how they did in their life. People who waited until they get the second one, the delayed gratifiers, they were more successful than the instant gratifiers. Because instant gratifiers they were not doing great in schools. They were not doing exercise because they just want to watch something. They don't want to do workouts because they want to have immediate benefits. They don't want to wait for the future benefits. So this is again psychological thing that you should be aware. Same in the investing, right? So we talked about savings and investing, right? Save and invest. Don't spend all the money you would be earning. And we saw Beam versus Shiv, where Beam saved and Shiv was always spending. So you could relate that Shiv was kind of instant gratifier. He wants to consume it now. He don't want to wait for the future fruits or future more things if he save and invest. Whereas Beam, he wants to save and invest for the future. So he wants to get more in the future. So this is something you need to be aware, and you should also observe around it. Are there any instant gratifications that you are falling trap of? Uh, mm, Playing long video games versus getting benefits of future. If you study well, you get good grades, or do sports, you get better health. uh, Same, what kind of food are we eating? Are we trying to eat fast food, instant gratification, versus the delayed gratification, where you cook the food at home and eat, so that you have a better health in 10 years time, right? So are all traps we all fall into: instance versus future. Should I watch the Netflix series that is released this weekend, or should I wait because I have this exams or this other things? I have to get better at it before I watch this Netflix series, which will take my 30-40 hours of time. So this is always a fight we are doing in our brain on daily basis. Not just you, every one of us. We are going through the same struggle. Even at work, adults, there are some work which is difficult. You need to put a lot of effort. Some work which is easy, you could easily get done. Many times people try to do easy stuff, right? Because the difficult one they want to delay. They don't, but the difficult one gives them the more results. So this is something you should be aware. And if you have I think you all pass through this age, you can't test it yourself now, but if you have small siblings, you can try this marshmallow test to see whether they can resist until some time to get the second one. It may not be marshmallow, it could be a chocolate or anything. You can try it on your siblings, and if they're able to resist, that gives the indication that they are emotionally uh, balanced, and they may be having a fruitful life, a successful life. Okay, any questions or anything you want to ask? Okay, I just want to show you another video
Bill believes he is living the
just to get a more insight of the same concept from the finance world.
dream. If he wants to go on a trip, he just does it, even if it means taking out a small loan. The same way, he loves saying yes to a car upgrade opportunity, new furniture, and so on. He occasionally maxes out his credit card, but earns enough to pay back what he borrowed. Tom earns just as much as Bill, but sees things differently. He goes on fewer and mostly less than exotic trips and generally lives beneath his means, choosing to instead set money aside and invest in anything from shares to real estate and precious metals. At its core, investing rather than consuming revolves around the idea of saying no to instant gratification because you believe you're better off building wealth, with delayed gratification being the key to a sustainable future. Is Bill or Tom right? Well, it depends on what you mean by sustainable future. From the perspective of personal financial stability, Tom is most definitely right. Should Bill end up dealing with, let's say, a debilitating illness that renders him unable to work, he can't exactly live off savings because he doesn't have any. Tom, on the other hand, would perhaps have a bit of rental income, some dividends, and so on in terms of cash flow, not to mention the value of the assets he accumulated and could sell if necessary. From the perspective of what society quote unquote wants from you these days, we're dealing with a paradox of thrift situation, a concept covered in another video. Simply put, our current economic model would implode in the absence of consumerism, if you will. For our current economic system to survive, society wants you to consume and even go after debt fueled instant gratification. To put it differently, society as we know it would most likely experience a violent reset if everyone would start embracing delayed gratification. Some economists think this is a major threat, others believe it would be a good thing, but that is a topic for another video.
So in this video, basically, it gives an example of how instant gratifiers uh, consuming it now versus saving it for the future, and how it affects different um, mm, uh, I think if you do this versus the bias we talked about, social comparison bias. So these are not single dimensional things, these are multi-dimensional things. So you have instant gratification versus delayed gratification emotion in your brain, as well as you have social comparison also in your brain. So they are fighting each other, right? My friend who bought a good car and posted it in the Facebook or Instagram, that's a social comparison bias in my brain, affecting me or trying to bother me. It's same time I'm following in delayed gratification. So if I'm a person, delayed gratified person, but my social comparison bias is also dominating my emotion. So do you understand? It's not just a single dimensional, it's multi-dimensional, because all the forces affecting on our brain in different directions. That's the reason you have to be watchful of what's happening or in your brain, comparing to all these biases that we would be talking. So instant gratified person who is in the society, who is posting something in the social media platform, and then social comparison bias also influencing the brain, who are the friends of him, comparing, okay, this guy bought this whatever toy he bought it, why I'm not able to do it. So that's influence some people, and then they go and buy it, right? Just by falling into the trap of social comparison bias.
Uncle.
Yep.
But what if, for example, like, what if there's no consequence? What if you do it now or later on? Like, simple thing, there's no consequence. So it doesn't really matter which time you do it.
Yeah, exactly. We should not take this concepts what we're talking in binary yes or no. We should always balance them. We could also argue in a way that some things you need to enjoy it now. You don't wait
Yeah.
until you are 60, right? Some trips, some things you want to see. I know some of my friends all their life they were been saving because they want to do the trips or vacations after they retire, right? After 50 to after they're 50. But once they reached 50, uh, they're never able to do it because they got old and they can't walk long distances, and they don't want to take risk, right?
Mm.
So you are right. I mean, we need to watch out of this things. Some things it's better to do it now. Spending great time with friends. You know, when you are a kid, in your school and college, those are great memories. I mean, you can't just give up for with the concept of delayed gratification and saying that I don't want to spend with time with my friends because I want to get too good at something, right? But it's a balance. I would not say it's binary yes or no, or this is correct, this is wrong. I would say you should be aware of this things, and you should balance it in a way. Sometimes if there are exams or something that is coming up, I would delay, or I would say to my friends, hey, let's not spend the time chatting or whatever we do with friends. Let's wait till until summer vacation, then we can spend solid time, right? So that is a delayed gratification thing, right? But you are right. You have to balance. You can't just wait. In fact, I have one video I want to show you, wherein Warren Buffett explains that because you understood the delayed gratification, you should not wait until you are 60 to do some exciting things you want to do in life, right? It's better to do it now. You never know uh, with COVID and things like that. Anything can happen to anybody anytime. So, okay, any other questions? Okay, I just want to show you other three videos. Yeah.
What is this marshmallow test? Well, when you look at
So this marshmallow test, I guess you may know this guy, great physicist. He is in National Geography and all over the place. Does the great physics shows. So let's hear from his own words. What is this marshmallow test?
Yes. Well, when you look at children and you look at all the different theories about what makes successful kids, you realize that almost all the theories are wrong because they haven't been verified. Like, for example, high IQ. You have a lot of high IQ people who become marginal members of society. And so, what is the one psychological test that correlates with success in life? And I found out that it's the marshmallow test. You get kids and ask them, do you want a marshmallow now or two marshmallows a few hours from now? And the kids that want the marshmallow now tend to be those that want shortcuts, those that don't want to do the hard work. They want the quick kill. They grab that marshmallow. But the other ones say, no, wait a minute. If I wait 2 hours, I can get two marshmallows. I can hold out. There's a pot of gold waiting for me. They're not going to take the shortcut. And so you say to yourself, well, that's a test for kids. But then you track them decade by decade by decade. And you find that they are more successful, they have a lower divorce rate, higher income, higher status in society, that don't want that simple payoff now, but are going to delay gratification into the future. And so I realized that that's the key to success in life, not just science, but in life. Don't take the shortcuts.
But can it be taught?
Well, part of it is your personality that is formed when you're very young. Okay, let's be very clear about that. But I think that, yes, I think that, for example, it turns out that if you do the same thing with poor children and the same thing with middle class children, it turns out that poor children will, in general, go for the quick kill because they know that things disappear real fast. If there's money in the house, it's gone in the future. If you can show people that there is a pot of gold out there, that yes, you hold out, you go to college, you'll learn the discipline, there's a pot of gold out there. You can learn to appreciate that fact. What we have in the brain that is different from animals is we understand time. We understand the future. My grandparents came to California 100 years ago. But imagine, back then, life expectancy was 49 years of age. I mean, you were born, you had kids, and died. Life was a bitch. Now we have an increased lifespan. We have all the luxury goods. Instead of yelling out the window, which is what my grandparents did to communicate, we have the internet. And so when you look at it the long term, decade for decade, you realize the enormous progress that we've made. We constantly daydream, we scheme, we plot. We constantly think about what could be. Now let's do an experiment. Go home tonight and teach your dog the concept of tomorrow. Try it. Teach your dog the concept of tomorrow, the next week, the next year, and you realize you can't. Animals live in the present. And that's what I think intelligence is. Intelligence is being able to map the future, simulate the future. So So if you get an experiment, people with low IQ and high IQ, put them in the same room, and you give them the same job, rob a bank. You'll find out that the low IQ people probably do a much better job of robbing a bank, plotting the bank robbery, than high IQ people who get all messed up with legal implications and stuff like that. The point is that you can have some very smart robbers because they see the future. And that's what we humans do that animals cannot. We constantly daydream. We constantly create worlds that don't.
He's deviating a little bit, but basically the message he was explaining is that how this experiment, shown proof, and this is again psychology. It's not a high IQ people that they are very successful in their life. It's the psychology, emotions, who has a better control over it, who manages it well, they are successful. So this is one thing, I want you to remember from the psychology world. Instant gratification versus delayed gratification. It- Getting aware of is most important, and following is the next step. Once you know this is there, so you could always think of how would you know um, use it in the life, right? In finance world, it's a saving we talked. In your in personal life, you delay the you wait until the future benefits, you look at for the future benefits and do work out for the future benefit instead of immediate benefits. Avoiding sugar is one of the thing you would realize. Avoiding junk food, doing exercise, though it's painful, takes a lot of time, but it's better health after 5 10 years. Maybe your friend is not doing exercise. He may be consuming something, sitting in front of TV and watching something which is exciting, but in long run, he may become fat or unhealthy. Whereas you are putting effort, you may become healthy and lean and better control of your body, right? It's all these things that you need to watch out and aware of it. That's part of emotions and psychology. And I just want to show what Charlie
Don't
Munger
exist.
says about this. I think we talked about him many times. He's 96 years old. He's one of the wisest person, and he's also one of the guy who introduced the psychology of human misjudgments to the investing people. How you can use psychology when you are doing the investing, or when you are doing the finance. So let's hear from him what he talks about delayed gratification.
I've been working in the financial services industry for the past 5 years. And one of the things that has surprised me is how many of my peers in the industry have sat out the market over the last 5 years, holding cash in anticipation of a market downturn. And I would think, given that we're in our late 20s and we've accumulated savings and have what's hopefully a multi-decade runway ahead of us, the right thing to do would be to start investing now. And my question is, first, do you agree with this assessment? And if so, how would you convince your friends to start investing? Thank you.
Well, I don't- it's obvious that deferred gratifiers do better over the long pull than these impulsive children that have to spend on money on Rolex watches and other folly. And not that I'm picking Rolexes any worse than at a Philippe or something. But I think everybody who's adult should save and not be stupid at spending money and defer gratification to get more later, and all those good things that we were taught, by Benjamin Franklin, thrift and so forth. And the odd thing about it is that people are kind of born deferred gratifiers or not. They've done recent psychological work on that subject. And lots of luck if you're an impulsive person that has to be gratified immediately. You're probably not going to have a very good life, and we can't fix you.
So basically, he's touching the same point that instant gratification versus delayed gratified, how people are. And again, as he was saying, you would see again around your friends and your family members, there is always instant gratifiers, right? Um, you try to explain them, hey, this is this delayed gratification, but it may not work because some people are it's difficult to change them, right? So it's all uh, uh, they should be aware and they should try to overcome this instant gratification, but it's not that easy once people are instant gratifiers, some people can't resist certain things, right? Could be alcohol, or could be cigarettes, or could be sugar, could be video games, could be social media. These are all instant gratification traps we fall into. So but at same time, you should not take delayed gratification too seriously and wait until 60 that you do all this stuff, right? That's also other extreme, so you have to balance too. So I think Warren Buffett here, when he's I think 3 years ago when he was 87, he was saying, he was answering one of the question that kid has asked him. So let's hear where he says, don't fall into the trap of too much delayed gratification. You should not hold things because you think you get a better result. Like, you don't want to go to Disney because you can save that money and invest it somewhere. Then you can go to Disney after 45, but you would not experience the same going to Disney when you are kid versus when you are adult, right? So there are certain things you should not do the delayed gratification. So it's a balance you have to do between instant gratification versus delayed gratification. You should not just go binary. Okay, I am all delayed gratified person, I'll do delay everything. That's also too bad, right? So again, this psychology world, there is no yes or no, or right or wrong answers. There is a balance. You have to do it yourself using common sense and some rational thinking, you know so this is something you have to be aware. It's not like a math class. You get an answer, you are right with if you get a correct answer, you are wrong if you don't get the correct answer. This is psychology. There is tens of answers, and you have to balance based on your common sense. Okay, should we watch this last Warren Buffett answer for one of the kids question, where he says too much delayed gratification is also not good, right? So
And he teaches me a lot of lessons about you guys. But many of them require the delayed gratification skill. I want to know, is there any way that kids can develop the delayed gratification skill?
It's interesting if you think about, we'll take it to a broader point, but if you think of a 30-year government bond paying 3%, and you allow for, as an individual, paying some taxes on the 3% you'll receive, and you'll have the Federal Reserve Board saying that their objective is to have 2% inflation, you'll really see that that delayed gratification, if you own a long government bond, is that you get to go to Disneyland and ride the same number of rides 30 years from now that you would if you did it now. The low interest rates for people who invest in fixed dollar investments really mean that you really aren't going to, get have eat steak later on if you eat hamburgers now, which is what I used to preach to my wife and children and anybody else that would listen many years ago. So I don't necessarily think that for all families in all circumstances that saving money is necessarily the best thing to do in life. I mean, if you really tell your kids they can, whatever it may be, they never go to the movies or will never go to Disneyland or something of the sort, because if I save this money 30 years from now, we'll be able to stay a week instead of 2 days. I think there's a lot to be said uh, for doing things that bring you and your family enjoyment rather than trying to save every dime. So I advise delayed gratification is not necessarily an unqualified uh, course of action under all circumstances. Uh, I always believed in spending 2 or 3 cents out of every dollar I earned, saving the rest. But I've always had everything I wanted. I mean,
Yeah, then he's diverting, but basically he's saying you should not take it extreme, right? If you want to do some family vacation or something, you should spend. I mean, those memories, those time would not come back, even if you have a lot of money later in life, right? So that's the thing. You should not take things extreme. In this world of psychology, you should always balance properly and judge using your common sense and rational mind. Any questions so far? Anything is not clear or anything you? Okay, so let's watch one last video about this instant gratification and the delayed
Well,
gratification.
biases are one of
But um, this is about the biases. Yeah.
I'm here because I have a very important message. I think we have found the most important factor for success. And it was found close to here, Stanford. Psychology professor took kids that were 4 years old and put them in a room all by themselves. And he would tell the child, a 4 year old kid, Johnny, I'm going to leave you here with a marshmallow for 15 minutes. If after I come back, this marshmallow is here, you will get another one. So you will have two. To tell a 4 year old kid to wait 15 minutes for something that they like is equivalent to tell us, we'll bring you coffee in 2 hours. Exact equivalent. So, what happened when the professor left the room? As soon as the door closed, 2 out of 3 ate the marshmallow. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 40 seconds, 50 seconds, 2 minutes, 4 minutes, 8 minutes. Some lasted 14 and a half minutes. Couldn't do it. Could not wait. What's interesting is that 1 out of 3 would look at the marshmallow and go like this. would look at it, put it back. They would walk around. They would play with their skirts and pants. That child already at 4 understood the most important principle for success, which is the ability to delay gratification, self discipline, the most important factor for success. 15 years later, 14, 15 years later, follow up study. What did they find? They went to look for these kids who were now 18 and 19, and they found that 100% of the children that had not eaten the marshmallow were successful. They had good grades, they were doing wonderful, they were happy, they had their plans, they had good relationship with the teachers, students, they were doing fine. A great percentage of the kids that ate the marshmallow, they were in trouble. They did not make it to the university. They had bad grades. Some of them dropped out. A few were still there with bad grades. A few had good grades. I had a question in my mind. Would Hispanic kids react the same way as the American kids? So I went to Colombia and I reproduced the experiment, and it was very funny. I used 4, 5, and 6 years old kids. And let me show you what happened.
Hasta para un niño de 4 años, es atractiva la idea de tener el 100% de retorno a la inversión en 15 minutos. Sin embargo, algunos de ellos, tan pronto la puerta se cerró, se comieron el marshmallow inmediatamente. Otros, en cambio, resistieron el impulso.
So, what happened in Colombia? Hispanic kids, 2 out of 3 ate the marshmallow, 1 out of 3 did not. This little girl was interesting. She ate the inside of the marshmallow. In other words, she wanted us to think that she had not eaten it, so she would get 2, but she ate it. So we know she'll be successful, but we have to watch her. Okay? She should not go into banking, for example, or work in a cash register, but she will be successful. And this applies for everything, even in sales. The salesperson that customer says, "I want that," and say, "Okay, here you are." The person ate the marshmallow. If the salesperson said, "Wait a second, let me ask you a few questions to see if this is a good choice," then you sell a lot more. So this has applications in all walks of life. I end with the Koreans did this. You know what? This is so good. We want a marshmallow book for children. And we did one for children, and now it's all over Korea. They're teaching these kids exactly this principle, and we need to learn that principle here in the States because we have a big debt. We're eating more marshmallows than we're producing. Thank you so much.
So that's the conclusion of this session. Think about this concept, and also try to discuss with your parents, and we'll try to cover one of the biases one by one every week. I want to take some of these biases we have here, and I don't want to cover all of them. I will cover top 10 which are critical in our daily life, both investing as well as personal life, so that you are aware of this psychological traps that we all fall into and how to avoid them. Okay, any questions before we close? If not, thanks for joining and we'll talk again next week.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Uncle.
Bye.
Hey,
This is really interesting topic.
Thanks for today. Bye.
thank you. Bye.
Uncle.
कि और contestants को भी और उनके आसपास